I realize that in this case, I'm making you speak on behalf of Texas to the rest of an angry Big 12. But I think one of the frustrations here for everybody also as Texas is on the way out the door is, and I was reading, I think it was one of your pieces back when this originally happened, like, hey, Texas fans just aren't fired up about playing KU, K-State, Iowa State, whoever it is, on a game in, game out basis in the Big 12. And I think the frustration there is like, well, like you said, there was Texas A&M, there was Nebraska, there was Colorado, Missouri. Texas drove them out and then looked around and said, well, hey, this conference isn't good enough anymore. And, I saw the meme of Texas as the Grim Reaper just coming down to the different doors, the Southwest Conference, the old Big 12, the new Big 12, just killing these conferences, I think is how it feels here. What would be the Texas response to that?
I've actually seen so many different versions of what has happened in the last, doing some quick math in my head, 25 years of the Big 12's existence. I think the big picture Texas perspective is that the reason Texas was entered into the Big 12 is because the Big 8, for all of its strong programs that were good on the field, lacked the demography and the viewership to survive as a major conference. And so they needed the state of Texas, they needed the state of Texas's markets for television ratings. The Big 12 was formed for the same reason that it's breaking up right now, which was trying to include Texas for television purposes. And so I think the perspective in Texas is that, that we as Texas, we've been propping up this conference with our brand and our control of the DFW and Houston markets. Now increasingly probably the Central Texas market is getting pretty big as well. Without us, this conference is not a Power 5 conference. So there should be some deference to us in dictating how this league works. Nebraska never liked that. Tom Osborne never liked that. Texas got one of the conditions of forming the league was the end of partial qualifiers, which really irked Tom Osborne. I sort of got lost in the weeds here a little bit, but I think the Texas perspective is basically don't hate us because you need us. And I think Texas feels a little bit put upon and disrespected by the rest of the league. Always the villain, despite being the brand that keeps the conference going. And they just don't have. They want the better schedule. They want the schedule where LSU and Alabama come to town regularly. They want to fill out the new stadium upgrades with seats. They want the high-profile matchups. And I don't know. It sucks to be not Texas or Oklahoma right now, but I think that it's kind of you would do the same if you were us.
Well, I completely agree with that. I do agree with that, and I think a lot of this has always been about what options you do have. Ian Boyd talking with me here from inside Texas. I think, I would just say it's like a two-way street, right? If you have the team that is the big monster brand and they certainly act like it, with, like you said, whether it's more the administration or just the boosters, developed I would say a well-deserved reputation for that. And again, you earned it by being the big brand. And Texas, the last time the Wall Street Journal valued football programs, was the number one in the country. So yeah. There's definitely legitimacy there, but I also think you can't understate how mad fans are going to be here. We're looking at Kansas right now, for instance. Like, what's the economic impact of this over the next 30, 40 years to a place that was really growing with this NBAF facility coming in here and the university and the football program? So, people are going to be pissed, I guess, is basically the point here.
Yeah, there's a lot tied in there. I will say, though, that there's a lot of people complain about how, like, the SEC network, the Big Ten network, the ACC network is shared equitably across the conference. And people are like, well, Texas doesn't do that. But ESPN approached them with the Longhorn network. ESPN wasn't looking to make a Big 12 network. It's just the league is imbalanced in terms of branding, and it's just a really difficult thing to balance out. And a big ask, I think, to ask Texas to stick around and try to share their money and keep the rest of the conference going when it's like, well, why would they do that? what are they getting from these other schools? What's the quid pro quo that Texas gets back? Uh, ostensibly an easier path to the playoff, but we haven't seen that happen. So as far as the impact, I don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. Obviously, it looks kind of grim for Kansas State as the second biggest program. I mean, obviously the biggest football program, but probably the second biggest school in Kansas, not AAU credited like Kansas. So they have fewer options. So the private Christian schools in Texas are obviously kind of up against it, TCU and Baylor. And, there's also a big question about the future of universities in the United States in general. Like, how much longer are universities going to be a place where they are big, expensive grounds maintained for students to come to? This last year, they bring in students into university campuses all around the country and then tell them to stick in their dorms and Zoom in. There's a big conversation to be had about what the future of university is because of technology and online education. So football, is one thing, bring people in to be a part of campus life. And then if football is smaller stakes, that could be a big blow. I don't know what to say about it for the schools that are not included in this reconsolidation. I think it might be ugly and really sad. And, it could be tragic. We'll have to see what happens.